Soon to be former Raiders quarterback Derek Carr had a nice quip at the Pro Bowl skills competition about his future. And Matt and I will get into where he potentially will end up and Senior Bowl standouts from the week of practice in Mobile, Alabama. Coming up on today's Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look into the NFL on the field and in the front office. With elite breakdowns, next-level analysis, and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. So the skills competition at the Pro Bowl, glad they're not trying to do the old Pro Bowl game, Matt. Like that was the thing that was like, how are they still trying to do this? And I think there's been a lot fewer replacements this year. It feels like that way. I haven't really paid that close of attention to the Pro Bowl stuff, but in past years, you end up with like 9 quarterbacks in the AFC. And it's like, oh, Mac Jones is a rookie, he's a Pro Bowl quarterback. I was like, what is going on here? So I think we're seeing less of that, which is good too, because putting Pro Bowler next to a guy's name who doesn't belong there, doesn't make sense for anybody. But during the skills competition, Derek Carr lit it up and was hitting the dummy all over the place. And we can talk a little bit about some of the competitions and skills competitions that they had at the Pro Bowl. But on Thursday, the big story was what Derek Carr said afterward. And Ryan Clark was interviewing him after and said, "You've completed a lot of passes in Las Vegas. Have you ever been that hot before?" And Derek Carr says, "No, never been that hot. I guess that's why I'm not going to, that's why I'm going somewhere else." Kind of but it was really funny. And Derek Carr, clearly one of the big dominoes this offseason on the move. Was he one of the hardest quarterbacks for you to place on the upcoming where will the quarterbacks land in 2023 list that we'll be getting into on next week's on an episode at some point next week?
Without question, because I think he has, I don't want to say immense value, but I think he has a lot of value. I forget what I was listening to, but sort of a side note I wanted to throw out there, though, just about the quarterback market. If you recall, I mean, we went through a ridiculous number of starting quarterbacks in the league this year. So there's a lot of talk that number 2 quarterbacks are going to have more value on the open market than they did in previous years. Like, we better be equipped with our backup because there's a really good chance he sees the field, which to me means a true starter like Carr has even more value. I mean, he's been healthy, he's been durable and reliable. He's not a star, but he's a quality player that would be an upgrade for a lot of teams. And just off the top of my head, I mean, if Baltimore trades Lamar, Washington, Tampa, Carolina, Atlanta, I'm sure I'm missing a few. I mean, Indy makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, I think there's probably 8 teams out there that would like to get a hold of Carr and probably will give up something decent for him, maybe even a first-round pick.
Right. And with Aaron Rodgers or Lamar Jackson, there's no guarantee those guys are going to get traded. We know Carr is going to be on the move. So that's why, to me, he's probably the biggest domino and the first domino. It takes a quarterback and a team off the market when Derek Carr does go somewhere. So we'll see what ends up happening there with Derek Carr. And, teams obviously that draft high in the NFL draft have an opportunity to say, okay, we like Derek Carr, but should we just go draft the guy? Do we not really like this draft class? Are we not sure the one quarterback we like is going to get to us at pick number 4 or 11 or wherever you might be selecting? So that's what makes this offseason a lot of fun is how teams view the quarterbacks on the veteran market, on the rookie market in the draft, and how these teams put their teams together. And Derek Carr is certainly a huge one. Dodgeball, one of the big skills.
Real quick on Carr before we move
Go
on, if you don't mind. I understand the Raiders have seen enough of him. They know him better than anyone. He's not for them. I don't know that they're going to be able to upgrade, though. I mean, I guess Devontae Adams came out and said something about, Rodgers is moving to my neighborhood, or I mean, whatever. Brady's not going there. They're not picking high enough to get one of the top 3 quarterbacks likely in the draft without giving up a lot to move up.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm wondering if the Raiders should be careful what they wish for. Like they could get worse at quarterback without a question.
That's what it sounds like. And we talked a little bit about it yesterday on our mailbag episode with GM Dave Ziegler was talking about how they're going to build this team. And it's like, we're not going for splash. We're not going for right now. We are trying to build this thing through the draft. So this might be a long-term rebuild for the Las Vegas Raiders. And I don't think they will get better right away, but I think that's probably smart in a lot of ways because they tried to do that last year and it didn't work.
Right. I think they're regretting how they handled last offseason. Not that Devontae Adams is a bad player.
Right.
Draft picks would have been more useful, or, draft Desmond Ridder and have him sit around for a year, those type of things, and build for 2 years from now as opposed to building for 2022, which didn't work out.
Yes. If you we talked about a couple of those other quarterbacks, just your spidey sense, Matt, do you think Aaron Rodgers or Lamar Jackson will be playing for other teams aside from the Packers and the Ravens respectively in 2023?
I absolutely think Rodgers will not be a Packer, and I guess the Raiders might be in it, but I really think the Jets just adds up too much. I strongly believe Lamar will not be a Raven either, and I could see him in Atlanta, Carolina. Really, there's a lot of teams that make sense. I mean, I forget when we were talking about the Colts. Colts would be pretty good with Lamar Jackson, and maybe I'd give you 4 for Lamar. Who says no to that?
What about Carr in Baltimore?
I think that's very possible. Right. I mean, I get some draft picks for Lamar, turn one of them and keep more draft capital, turn Lamar into Carr, try to get some kind of receiver, either in the draft or DeAndre Hopkins or whatever. I think that could change that team dramatically and play a more traditional style, and wouldn't be that hard to pull off. I mean, you definitely need to add a receiver or 2, but I could see that. Yeah.
And they do have Bateman coming back next year too.
Right. I like Bateman a lot, but I don't know that I think they kind of overshot thinking, Bateman's the one, we'll be fine.
Yeah. He didn't get to have that breakout season that I think a lot of people expected, including the Ravens last year. Looking at the Pro Bowl skills, if you guys weren't paying attention, I wasn't really paying close attention. It did look like a lot of fun they were having, and to be honest with you, watching NFL players play dodgeball was more exciting than watching NFL players play a Pro Bowl football game.
I bet it was, yeah, right.
Pro Bowl dodgeball was fun. They had a longest drive competition. The precision passing was the competition that Derek Carr won. They had best catch as well. And those were the Thursday events. And then on Sunday, they come back with some more events at the Pro Bowl with Gridiron Gauntlet, which is a side-by-side relay race showcasing strength, speed, and agility. 6 players from each conference compete to see who finishes first and wins 3 points for his team. So I don't even know what this gauntlet is going to be, but here we go. So it's each segment 40 yards in length, includes a series of breakaway walls, a section climbing up. So it's kind of like the
some of the wide world of sports stuff when I was growing up were kind of fun, know.
Then we've got each team's kicker, punter, and long snapper compete in a giant tic-tac-toe competition. Okay.
I guess they're trying to drop it in the center box or whatever.
I'm picturing a so long snapper. Are long snappers doing it as well, or are they all just setting up for a kick where it's like a field goal and then there's squares in the field goal posts?
Maybe they put. I'm learning all about this as you tell me, to be honest. I've ignored the Pro Bowl since I was a teenager or a 12-year-old on purpose.
Yes, same.
But I have a couple questions. First of all, when you said longest drive, are we talking about golf?
Yes, longest drive.
Okay, so they're just out there smacking the heck out of it. Okay.
Yes. By the way, the AT&T Pro-Am, where Aaron Rodgers was this weekend at Pebble Beach here in California, Josh Allen there as well. When Aaron Rodgers was teeing off, there was somebody asked him a question, and they were kind of mic'd up and having fun. And they said, "Do you have any announcements you want to make, Aaron?" And he said, "I'm not going to San Fran." So Aaron Rodgers not going to the 49ers. That's from his mouth.
Okay.
We have that too.
Back to tic-tac-toe real quick. Okay. This is what I'm hoping now I think about it, is I hope they put a net up in the uprights with a tic-tac-toe board, 9 squares, And team one hits one, and you got the middle one. Nice, put the X in the middle. Oh, you missed, or you know, whatever. You just, maybe that's how they do it. But my question is, did they ship 32 times 3, 96 holders, snappers, and punters and kickers to Vegas? Is every team have one?
No, I think it's just the Pro Bowlers.
Okay.
When I first read it, it did sound like every team in the NFL, but I think just by each teams, it just means the AFC and the NFC. Kicker, punter, and long snapper go head to head here.
I've got 32 long snappers in Vegas right now. Like, that's crazy stuff.
Got further details on the kick tic-tac-toe. Sorry, kick-tac-toe is what they're called.
Oh, nice, of course.
The first team to complete a connection line of 3 squares or hit 5 squares total will be declared the winner and earn 3 points for his conference. So it does sound like, in between the goalposts, there's 9.
Yeah. That's kind of fun. It's not the worst idea ever.
Also better than the actual Pro Bowl game.
That's what I was to say. All this is better than them playing football. Great. Yeah. And pretending to play football.
And then there's a flag football game as well Sunday.
I just don't want anyone to get hurt in that one.
I was going to say the exact same thing. Don't get hurt. Rule number 1 of Pro Bowl flag football.
I don't know if you remember this. This was a long time ago. There was a Patriot rookie running back. His last name was Edwards, I think. He was a pretty good player.
He was rookie of the year, wasn't he?
I think he was rookie of the year. I should remember his name off the top of my head.
Robert Edwards.
Robert Edwards. He was a good player. And the rookies played flag sand football. That was their Pro Bowl event, and he blew out his knee. You know, it was like, oh, geez. You know.
He went up for like a catch in the end zone on the beach and just destroyed his knee. Was never the same. Terrible.
Yeah, I really hope that doesn't happen, obviously.
All right, let's talk NFL draft. Let's talk Senior Bowl prospects next. As a small business owner or hiring manager, you know that success in 2023 all depends on the team members you surround yourself with. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. With LinkedIn Jobs, you can hire qualified candidates you want to talk to faster and for free. The best part, it is for free at LinkedIn Jobs. You will efficiently match open roles with people who have the skills, values, and experiences to help you achieve your goals as a small business. And it's no different from NFL teams as it is for small businesses. You got to find the right people. You got to find the right people in management who can hire the right people underneath them to put together the best team. LinkedIn Jobs helps you quickly attract qualified candidates to your open jobs with targeting tools. Go beyond the resume. We're talking about a member profile network of over 800 million members at LinkedIn as well. Put your post in front of the most qualified candidates that fit your job. So why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs number 1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. So LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Okay, here we go, Matt.
All right.
Senior Bowl. Is there one player you saw at the Senior Bowl that is like, this is the dude, I want to draft this guy on my football team?
Well, so first of all, let me preface this is up until this week, I do my best to keep my head above water with draft prep, but there's so much going on, NFL stuff. I read what I can. Maybe I watch some highlights. I want to know the names that are top 2 days, you know, certainly the top 50 players. When people put out a mock, I click on it and I read it, you know, so I know the top guys, but my draft prep escalates rapidly this week because
this is when it begins for me as well. And in the past, when I did not have a child and was not married, and those things, I was crazy with the draft. I was a draft geek all year long. And more recently, Saturdays are the one day I can't do this stuff, and that's the day that these players are all playing, right? And so I'm so
Bath and Beyond day, you know?
Right? Exactly. And so it's really just starts with haste, basically, at the Senior Bowl, and it's so fun to watch some of these players because a lot of them don't get a lot of pub, and we're talking about guys that are going to rise up draft boards, and you don't hear about them all year long.
Because what I love about it is the surefire first rounders basically aren't there, so I basically learn about 90 to 100 guys intently, you know, I mean, all their heights and weights, everything everyone's being said about them. This year, NFL Plus had both, you know, had really, really good coverage. Sometimes the coverage isn't great from if you're not there. I could have went. I decided not to this year. So I really learned a lot about these guys. There were 2 guys that I knew about, but I would bet that they're in contention to be the first player drafted from Mobile, and that's tight end Luke Musgrave. Boy, is he impressive. This tight end class is unbelievable, by the way. But Luke Musgrave running through the secondary looks like, relatively speaking, like Kelsey or Kittle. I mean, just these long strides, eating up space, 6'5.5". He only played 2 games for Oregon State this year, and then he got hurt. But so he's in contention for first tight end off the board.
One note on Luke Musgrave. I saw the top 5 GPS miles per hour times.
And he was really
Senior
high
Bowl
on
practices. And I mean, we're talking with wide receivers, DBs. There's a really good running back group there at the Senior Bowl. He was one of the top 5 fastest guys GPS. So yeah, you want a guy to hit the seam. He's one of them.
He's absolutely one of them. I think it's a coin flip between him and Osiris Torrance, who's a prototypical guard from Florida, almost 6'5", 337, long arms. He dominated one-on-one reps. He's going to go in the first round. I think one of those two will be the first guys drafted from the game. But I was impressed with a lot of dudes. And when you ask me who did I fall in love with, it's John Michael Schmitz, the center from Minnesota. He was great in this game. Leader, tough, big square build. I don't remember many reps that I saw him lose, and that includes the team drills. I mean, we've been talking about him on my Steelers show, that at 32 with the first pick in the second round, wouldn't bother me one bit if the Steelers led off day 2 taking John Michael Schmitz out of Minnesota.
Wow, there we go.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, let's go down and highlight a couple of people per position, and then we can, go back over some of the guys you already mentioned there at the Senior Bowl. Let's start with the quarterbacks. Is there the next Brock Purdy, Taylor Heineke type of guy that you saw in Mobile?
First of all, this is about as bad a quarterback class as I could remember. Like last year, Willis, Pickett, the high draft picks were all in attendance. I've been there when Jay Cutler was there in the first round. Usually there's a couple dudes.
And even last year, sorry to interrupt, even last year, it was like, oh man, these, Willis is going to go in the first round. He might go number 2 overall to the Lions. He ended up going in the first round, but we might not get a guy that goes even in the 3rd round from this group.
No. And Hendon Hooker was there, but he's injured. He was just, taking mental reps. He's going to go higher than anybody else. Herner from Fresno State was generally considered the best quarterback there, but he's more Purdy than he is Pickett in terms of draft. He's a 5th rounder or something like that.
I've been watching a lot of him here in California. There's a lot of hype. A lot of 49ers fans are like, you gotta draft Jake Haener, and he has all those, high football IQ, accurate, athletic, can get out in the, the rollout game and do some of those things. He's won some big games. He's played a lot of football, but he's an older prospect. He was 6 foot even, 208 pounds. So very small, doesn't have a big arm or anything like that, but he can kind of quote unquote make all the throws type of guy. And so if you're looking at a day 3 guy that might be sort of that Brock Purdy-ish type of prospect, or that Taylor Heineke type of prospect, I think Jake Haener from Fresno State's probably it.
I think most people think he's the best one there, and I'm fine with that. I
will
say
he's a day 3 guy though, 6 feet, 208, not a big arm, has some injuries in his past. He's an older prospect. I mean, nobody's going to spend a 3rd round pick on Jake Haener either, and he might be the best guy there.
I was watching Tuesday practices with my 16-year-old, and he's like, these quarterbacks look like they're my friends from high school. Like they're all little, they're all like little, dainty. Like none of them looks like Josh Allen or Cam Newton or, like big, strong, strapping dudes. One guy I do want to throw. Oh, I wanted to say this too about the quarterbacks is the cornerbacks are really, really good in this class. And that was reflective of the Senior Bowl. Not that the wide receivers were bad, but it was hard to evaluate wide receivers because the corners were great and the quarterbacks were terrible. So bad quarterbacks, good corners makes it tough to see what the wide receivers can do.
And usually in this environment, it's really important to remind people, because you watch these guys in one-on-ones and these receivers are doing like double moves, triple moves.
Right.
Like that, you're not sitting there for 5 seconds one-on-one. It's ridiculous. It's so heavily weighed toward the wide receiver in those, and so heavily weighed toward the running backs when they're going against linebackers that it's really something if you're saying that the DBs were winning the day.
Right. I remember when I was there, it was either my first couple of years at ESPN or my Browns year, and Sonoris Moss, Santana Moss's younger brother, is just lighting it up. And an older scout leans over to me. He's like, you realize there's no pass rush. That was like 8 seconds after the snap. Like no one's going to keep up with this guy. He's doing Not only is he doing a slant and go, he's doing a slant and go, come back out. Like holy cow.
Right.
One guy I thought was really interesting though is Tyson Bagette. He's from Shepherd, so obviously he struggled. I mean, he's from Shepherd at the Senior Bowl, handing it to dudes from Georgia and throwing to guys from Alabama and whatnot. But he's got an arm and he's real twitchy. Like, I would love to grab him in the 6th or 7th round, redshirt him for 2 years and see what happens.
Gun to my head, Matt. No idea what state Shepherd.
Oh, I don't either. Yeah, no clue.
One of those guys that linebackers and DBs alike could not hang with at the Senior Bowl. He's on everybody's top lists of Senior Bowl standouts, was Tulane running back Tyjae Spears, and actually weighed in okay for being someone that might not be an every down sort of a guy. And I think he's probably thought of as a scat back coming into this, but it's really important for him to get over 200. So 5'9.5" or 5'9 and 5/8". 204 pounds, really big 10-inch hands. So if you want that player that's at minimum a change of pace, third down type of back, this dude is dynamic, and he was losing guys left and right, and people were just like floored watching Tyjae Spears this week at the Senior Bowl.
He was fantastic. Just the way he cuts was way different than anybody else. 90-degree cuts, explosion, acceleration. Running backs can have a tough time at Senior Bowl practices because you're not breaking tackles. You don't run in plays to the ground. So the game's a little more important for running backs than other positions. So if you can stand out, that's a big feather in your cap, and he absolutely did. And you mentioned the key with him. I mean, I guess he played at like 195 most of the year, put 10 pounds on, and didn't lose any explosion. That was the question, and he passed the test.
But again, sort of the Sonoris Moss thing you talked about, teams have to figure out, okay, is he going to run through arm tackles? How high do you draft a player like that?
Yeah.
Clearly improved his stock. Is he going to go in that James Cook area last year where we saw the Bills draft James Cook, which I thought was too high in the second round? I would think Spears is more of a 3rd, 4th round guy, but just seeing how dynamic he was in space at the Senior Bowl probably elevated him to a slam dunk day 2 pick.
I think so. I absolutely think so. I mean, I don't know if he's an every down back. He might be every downish than James Cook, but yeah, that's probably the neighborhood.
Any other running backs before we move on?
It was a really good group. I don't know if there's anybody really worth highlighting. I'm looking for the name. I missed it off the top of my head, but the dude from Texas is Bijan Robinson's backup, but he, I think, is going to be a very good player in his own right. I'm pulling up the name right now. But he only practiced one day. It's Roschon Johnson. Yeah. I mean, he looks like an every down back. He moves like an every down back. He was just stuck behind a transcendent player at Texas. He got hurt after the first day. He actually broke his hand, finished practice, and then just didn't practice the rest of the week. But if you're looking for like a dynasty guy or maybe an every down back for your team, I think Roschon Johnson could be that guy.
Yeah, Roschon Johnson, 6 feet and 1/2 inch, 225. So certainly built right. Like it's funny, you could be the second best running back in the draft, but unfortunately, you went to the same school as Bijan Robinson.
Right. So,
all right.
Some people probably look at it like Pierce last year and be like, "Wow, he doesn't have a lot of wear and tear, so that's good." All
right. Next, let's look at some wide receivers, maybe a couple of the tight ends, and some linemen and defensive players as well. Standouts from the Senior Bowl. Today's episode brought to you by TurboTax. Go to TurboTax and don't do your taxes. Meet with an expert who will do them for you. TurboTax experts can relieve you from the stress of taxes and file for you so you can do not taxes. Sing a not taxes lullaby. Hope not taxes sleeps through the night. Grab a saddle and ride not taxes into the sunset. You get the idea. It's so much better to not do your taxes and make sure they are done right. And you can do that with a TurboTax expert who will do your taxes from start to finish, ensuring your taxes are done right, guaranteed, so you can relax. Feels good to be done with your taxes, doesn't it? Come to TurboTax and don't do your taxes. Visit TurboTax.com to learn more. Intuit TurboTax, full service products only. Video meeting while expert does your taxes required. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. Okay. What about that wide receiver group? You said it was hard for them to stand out. Did anybody jump out at you, Matt, at the Senior Bowl practices this week?
Two I think are worth talking about is Nathaniel Dell from Houston. He is tiny, 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 though. I mean, he's a perfect Sonoris Moss example we just mentioned. I mean, he's a little over 5'8", 163. Like, how many guys 163 are out there succeeding? But really, really explosive. Nobody could keep up with him. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes. He certainly rose in terms of his stock. But a more traditional guy I really like, too, was Jaden Reed from Michigan State. You mentioned the GPS tracker. As of Wednesday, he was the fastest guy there GPS-wise, but isn't a tiny jitterbug, can play slot, can play outside. Didn't have a big year, but the Michigan State offense was really bad this past year. 2 years ago, he was quite good. So I think he's a day two guy.
Jaden Reed was somebody that my guy Eric Crocker, who is my co-host for Locked On 49ers, for those of you guys who don't know, former AFL and NFL cornerback, and he's I really trust him with his evaluations with corners and DBs and wide receivers, and he's really good. Jaden Reed was someone that stood out to him as well. He's not huge, but 5'10" and 3/4, 191. So he's not so small that he can't be that outside inside slot guy. And probably profiles more of a slot wide receiver, but definitely a standout guy that can get the heck out of his breaks.
Yeah, I would bet that he's the first receiver drafted from the Senior Bowl. Just a hunch.
Anybody else on the tight end list besides Luke Musgrave that by the way, just prototype Luke Musgrave? We talked about his speed, 6'5.5", 255. That's huge, massive 10.5-inch hands. Like, prototype Luke Musgrave, and this is already a really good tight end class.
Yeah, everyone there was decent. I mean, he was an absolute standout. I know we're kind of up against it in time here, so I'm not going to dig into any other tight ends other than there might be 5 or 6 of them in the top 50 picks overall. I mean, it's an awesome tight end class.
Yeah, great year to draft a tight end, and might even push a really good one down into day 2, late day 2 that might not have been there normally. So if you look for a backup tight end, one of those guys might fall into your lap that might go a lot higher in previous years.
I agree. It's a really good class.
Offensive line, you mentioned Schmitz, John Michael Schmitz, that had a really good day there in Mobile, Alabama. A lot of folks liked what they saw from him. Anybody else stand out to you on the O-line?
Yeah, I mentioned Torrance as well. He's very impressive. I think you have to mention the Ohio State dude, Jones. He is DeJuan Jones is unbelievable because he is the biggest human being I've really ever seen. And he obviously got some good advice because he went to the weigh-in over 6'8", 375, and the biggest wingspan they've ever measured in Senior Bowl history. And he makes the other tackles and guards look little. So he goes to the weigh-in, practices on Tuesday, wins every rep, and wisely, he has his jersey up so you can see his abs. And he doesn't look like an underwear model at 375, but he's not fat. You would think 375, he's all over the place, and he's not at all. Wins the day Tuesday, tells everyone he's ill, and I think he just left Mobile after practice and never came back. Like, drops the mic and walks out of there.
I mean, 6'8", 375 is so huge. If you can at all get out into your pass set, you just have to.
It looked like he could.
Pass rushers have to orbit you, and that's enough. I think of someone like
I think he's more athletic than Orlando Brown.
I mean, that's a first-round pick thing.
Orlando Brown's about to make 20-some million on the open market this year, Right.
I'm blanking on his name. The former 49er, a Patriot offensive tackle, huge, from Florida.
Yeah. He's still floating around. I forget his name, too.
I think he started last year at left tackle.
Yeah. I want to say Davis, right? But that's wrong.
No.
But he's made a lot of money, too.
Yeah. I mean, you don't even have to be that athletic if you just have to be able to make guys move around you. But 11 3/8-inch hands, that is insane. That is so big. 36 5/8 arm length, 89.5-inch wingspan. Those are all numbers that I can't ever recall seeing. It's just unbelievable how big he is. So the combine will be huge if he shows any movement skills. That's a first-round guy. I mean, that's
I think so. Yeah, because he did move well. Like, I watched Falele last year, and he was real top-heavy and heavy-footed and ended up going to the 3rd round. This guy doesn't move like that at all. And you mentioned the arm length. His arms are typical for a 7'5" person. So not only is he tall with long arms, but he has unusually long arms for a 6'8" guy.
Unreal.
It's crazy.
Defensive side of the ball, Matt. Standouts, front seven?
Tons of them. I mean, again, it's a really good corner draft. There were a couple safeties that stood out, of course. Not a bad linebacker group either. I'm trying to think who some of the guys that we really need to talk about.
I think Julius Brents is the name I've seen the most as far as cornerbacks go out of Kansas
that's
State.
A good one.
And he can
6'3".
he can break on the ball, moves like a guy much smaller, but 6'3", 202, long arms, just really looks the part and was competitive at the catch point. And really, that's the key, is if you can break on the football at that size, that's massive. So I think Julius Brents made himself a ton of money at corner.
That's a great one. He made a lot of money for sure. And boy, there's no Jalen Ramsey, Sauce Gardner in this class, but by about maybe pick 12 or so, maybe all through day 2, there's all these 6-foot corners that can play. I mean, if you need a corner, this is a great draft for it. And the last defensive player I think I have to mention is Keon White. He's a defensive lineman from Georgia Tech. And he played kind of a stand-up role in college, and he can do that. But he is kind of a freak. I mean, he's 6'4 3/4, 280. They list him as an edge. He's thinking he might break a 4.6 40. I mean, like, he's really dynamic. He's got a lot of great movement traits. Move him all over the line of scrimmage. I was actually thinking, your Niners, just move him somewhere. Just give me an athletic freak defensive lineman. I'll figure out where to line him up.
So many attacking defensive lines now where you have that big defensive end that can move inside, and 6'5", 280, long arms, explosive ability up the field. I mean, that's the name of the game these days, especially if you can get a guy like that outside of, the top 50 picks maybe.
Yeah, I think he might go in the first round, especially after we watch him in Indy, because he's going to like those drills.
If he does break 4.6, it's like, okay.
Right. Wow. Right. 280.
And those are the types of guys that, even if you don't really know much about them and they're not getting a lot of publicity, and late in the first round, you see the offensive lineman or the defensive lineman that you're like, oh, wow, they drafted this guy that high. And then you look at the height, weight, speed numbers, and it's just so hard for teams to find those guys. And if you have that on the offensive line, especially at tackle, or the defensive line, you have those measurables, teams will say, I want to try to develop this guy because these are not players that we're going to be able to find later.
Yeah. I mentioned the Niners, but I don't know if the Eagles could pass with him on 30 or 31 either. They're going to draft D lineman no matter what. We don't need another one, but so what? We'll just bring him in and coach him up and go from there.
A lot of money to be made. We know the first round's not going to be just underclassmen, so some of these seniors got to work their way up draft boards in the NFL, and I'm sure NFL folks and scouts were really excited to see some of the folks from this group at the Senior Bowl. And of course, the game is still to come, so we'll talk more about Senior Bowl prospects. We'll talk about other prospects. We'll talk about some rookie quarterback prospects as well when we start putting some names to teams next week in our projection of which quarterback will start for every team in the NFL. Offseason, so fun. And of course, guess what? There's another football game called the Super Bowl coming up next week as well. Matt and I are with you every single day here on Peacock and Williamson. Thanks for making us your first listen. Talk to you then, right here, Peacock and Williamson.